My audience, and if we could give them a warm river welcome. So if you're part of our online audience, Pastor Kevin loves it if you would just type in the chat where you're viewing from, and during the service you're free to type in comments, your amens and hallelujahs. Pastor Kevin is not here today. I don't know if everybody knows it, but he and Kathy bought a sailboat, and I think they named it "You've Got to Start Somewhere."
Oh, wow.
So he had to pick the sailboat up. It was too expensive to have it shipped.
Looks like
So
it's
he
stuck.
went to Erie, Pennsylvania,
Looks like it's stuck.
and he has one other crewman who he calls the Admiral. I don't even know what his real name is. But so we have Captain Cook and the Admiral, and they're going to be sailing the ship from Erie, participating about 8 days of sailing on the ship. It's just he and this other guy. He said he would not bring Kathy, he would not do that to her. So we are wishing Captain Cook and the Admiral fair winds and following seas and Godspeed. And be like Jesus and stay on top of the water. But in his absence, he has invited our amazing guest to be with us today, Pastor Larry Hayward and his wife Peggy. Pastor Larry is an associate pastor at Lake Point Community Church in Oxford, and he specializes in marriage and parenting counseling, and they do pre-marriage counseling also. In 2017, he founded a nonprofit organization called Harmony in the Home. And he did that in order to help families outside of their church. At the end of the service, you'll have an opportunity to minister and to give an offering for this. And Pastor Larry and Peggy were here probably a couple years ago now. They came on Wednesday night for a few weeks. And if you had the opportunity to sit in, awesome thing. Together, they have 4 grown children, 9 grandchildren, and I understand 1 on the way. And Pastor Larry also runs triathlons. So, what more can you say about this guy? So let's give him a warm river welcome.
I'm up here with my buddy, my Harmony Mayor. I'd like to introduce you. I appreciate that great introduction, but the wind beneath my sails, the spice in my life, my very best friend, wife of 39 years, 40 this fall, is my wife Peggy. I do believe through Harmony in teaching on principles of relationships. One of the things that we've been doing this, where we actually got started last fall, is put a new garden in. Do we have any gardeners? Okay, we get, and it's really pretty simple as far as the principles. You gotta have good soil, you gotta have enough water, you gotta keep the weeds out. It's not that complicated. It's just a ton of work. Can we agree on that? Okay, well, relationships in general fit that description. The principles, what I'm going to be sharing with you today, most of which you've probably already heard. It's easy to understand. It's not so easy to always put into practice. One of the things that happens during the summertime is carnivals. And there's one particular carnival game I want to start off talking about, the ring toss of the bottle. So see that, got that up there. Now, one of the principles of carnival games is that they are very difficult to win. And so they give you 3 tosses and might give you a very small prize if you get one of them on. But what if they required you to get not just 1 ring, but all 3 rings on? And not just on 3 separate bottles as it's shown up there, but on the exact same bottle. Well, that's how easy it is to successfully do something that each one of you do multiple times every day. And that is have constructive communication, especially in the midst of emotional times. And there's really 3 rings involved with communication. And it goes something like this. The first one is what you need. And that's simply that inside our minds, we have a lot of thoughts based on our emotions, based on our perspectives, based on our upbringing, based on our mood and whatnot. And those thoughts come out of our heart and they're in our mind. And some of those things we actually speak out of our mouth. And that's the second ring. First ring, what you mean. Second ring, what you say. And already there's been a disconnect. Because you don't say everything that you think. You just can't. You've got to condense it down and you pick and choose what you do. How many times have you had a conversation with somebody and you didn't communicate what you meant because you didn't give them enough information? But you knew the information. What was wrong with them? Right, they just hadn't gotten it. So, you've got some things in your mind, that's what you need. Then, it's what you say, but the third ring is what is heard. Now, what happens after the person hears that is that they think in concepts in their mind, and then they return some words to you, and then you hear what they say. What could possibly go wrong? In order to have effective communication, what you really need to do is you need to develop the skill of asking the right questions. There's a movie that came out in 2004 called I, Robot, starring Will Smith. And one of the portions of the movie, there was a hologram created by Dr. Spooner. And that device has limited storage capacity, so he could only pre-program answers to a few questions before he was going to commit suicide. And he knew that would prompt Wilson's character to start investigating. And I've got a movie clip from that I'd like to show you. And it's just to demonstrate that the skill it takes, the effort it takes to ask the right question. Let's watch the screen.
Good to see you again, son.
Hello, Doctor.
Everything that follows is the result of what you see here.
Is there something you want to tell me?
I'm sorry, my responses are limited. You must ask the right questions.
Why did you call me?
I trust your judgment.
Normally these circumstances wouldn't require a homicide attack.
But then our interactions have never been entirely normal. Would you agree?
Never. Is there something you want to say to me?
I'm sorry. My responses are limited. You must ask the right question.
Why would you kill yourself?
That's it. It's the right question. Come around to me. I go away and breadcrumbs follow. Show me the way home. Run program. It's good to see you again, son.
Hello, Doctor.
Everything that follows is a result of what you see here.
What do I see here?
I'm sorry, my responses are limited. You must ask the right questions.
Is there a problem with 3 laws?
The 3 laws of truth.
Why would you build a robot that can function without?
The 3 laws will lead to only one logical outcome.
to become angry. Okay? Because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. Now this follows what I was talking earlier, that the principle is simple. It's the execution that's hard. I mean, if we know that if we'll listen more than speak, then anger's not going to be an issue in relationship, then that's how all of us act, right? And when somebody comes at you and they're upset and they're emotional, then you just stay calm and you just are quick to listen, right? And you're slow to speak. But we don't do it that way, do we? No, we don't. So I want to show another video clip. There's a YouTube video that's gotten a lot of popularity. Some of you may have already seen it. It's not about the nail.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
Yeah, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. If you would just...
Don't.
Try to see things my way.
So let me take a poll. How many of you identified with him? How many of you identified with her? So let's take the 3 rings that we talked about earlier, what you mean, what you say, and what is heard, and apply that to their conversation. Now, she was the one that started talking first. What did she mean? Go ahead, give me some feedback. Her head hurts. She felt pressure. You couldn't get past seeing the nail. That's what he saw. What did he hear? What was the 3rd ring? What did he hear?
He heard a description of symptoms that he right away said that must be a nail.
Mm-hmm.
There could have been other things causing all of that stuff. He just assumed it was that and wouldn't listen to anything else.
Did she effectively communicate what was in her mind, what was in her heart? She didn't. And did he do a good job of listening? Then he started speaking what he meant, what he said, and what she heard. What did he mean? He was trying to fix it. He meant well. Can we all agree that his motive, what he meant was good? Okay. He was just looking at the obvious. What did she hear? He didn't care. Pardon? He didn't understand. Now those two phrases are what absolutely baffle men when I'm in the middle of marriage counseling. And I'd like to share with you just some understanding of the miscommunication that happens and the frustration that guys feel, and then I'll get to the frustration that women feel, because both of them were frustrated. Neither one felt heard. Neither one felt listened to. Neither one felt understood. Now, we all agreed, I believe, that he meant well. He was trying to help. He wanted to help his girlfriend. He wanted to relieve the symptoms that she was feeling. And yet, at the end of it, she felt that he didn't care. And that's hard for us guys sometimes to understand. He's doing the right things as far as wanting to help. He's got the right motives. He wasn't doing the right things because he wasn't listening well. But out of that, he still was accused of not caring. Now, is that an accurate description of him? No, I don't think so. But is that an accurate description of how it felt to her? Exactly. Yes. And so, how are they going to resolve this? How are they going to have effective communication? They both are going to need to learn to listen better. They both are going to need to learn to ask the right question in the middle of that discussion. Now, there's a cartoon that I want to put up on the board that explains the attitude that both of them had as the conversation was going on. He didn't hear what she meant. She didn't hear what he meant. And how can you have better communication? Well, I've got an acrostic that it's only got 3 letters in it. It ought to be easy for you guys to remember and be able to put into practice. And that acrostic is EAR, E-A-R. You need to use your ear, not your mouth. You need to listen more than you speak. And the E in ear stands for encounter. You need to encounter the other person. You need to stop and think, stop thinking about what you want to say, stop thinking about how you want to communicate, and you need to listen to the other person. You need to actually listen to what she's saying. You need to listen to what he's saying. You need to ask questions about what they're saying. There's a scripture in Proverbs that says, whoever gives an answer before he or she listens is stupid. Now, growing up, stupid was an outlawed word in my home. And I've preached in front of my parents a few times, and if I've read a verse like that, my mom would give me the look. But I'm not using that word myself. I'm just reading what God wrote. And yet, we do it all the time. We start answering before we've even heard what was said. Now, for everyone that's in here, that you're like the guy in the video. You sincerely want to help. Let me give you a principle that will help you. If you can learn to put this into practice, you'll be more effective in your desire of helping, and that is this. You need to reach the heart before you can help the head. See, the mistake that he made in the videos, he was trying to help the head without touching the heart. And it backfired on him, blew up in his face. He got accused of not caring when that was his motivation. And that's how powerful it is if you don't reach the heart first. And the only way that you can reach the heart is by listening. What she was sharing, even more so than the pain that she was in, was the frustration that she didn't understand it. It's unrelenting. It's not stopping. It seems like it's going to go on forever. She was afraid more than she was in pain. And he missed that. He wasn't listening to what she was saying. He didn't ask her any questions. Jeff Allen, Christian comedian, says, you can be right or you can be happy, but you can't be both. Now, as he shares that, he is talking specifically to husbands in relationships. But I say it fits with the wife just as well. When you're in the middle of a discussion, and okay, we're in church, so Christians don't argue. Christian marriages, we don't have arguments, right? We just call it intense fellowship. So if you're in the middle of intense fellowship, you're going to need to think about the other person more than you think about yourself if you want to resolve the conflict. Because, see, here's the problem, and I run into this a lot when I'm working with couples. And that is, they have an opinion that they're right. Now, I don't know that anybody in this church ever has that opinion. But I explain it this way. Because you believe that you're right, you're going to end up going down a path that's labeled, I'm right. And there's nothing productive that you can find on that path. Because, see, if you're right and you're in the middle of intense fellowship, then you already believe you have all the information that you need to make a final decision. And therefore, you don't need to listen to any more information because you've already got all that you need. Therefore, there's no real need for you to listen to what the other person is saying. You can spend your time thinking about what your response is going to be. And if you're right, then the only purpose that you have in continuing the intense fellowship is to prove that you are correct, that you are right. It's to convince the other person how right you are. And if you're right, then the other person is wrong. Can you see any compatibility, any solution, any resolve when both parties are coming into the intense fellowship with that attitude? And all that I'm saying is that at the beginning of the argument, you don't have enough information to make a final decision. And if you will hold off making that final decision, that final judgment, things will go better for you. Because the A in ear is ask. Ask questions. And that'll happen if you have the attitude that I don't know everything. I don't know enough. I don't understand enough. I don't have the information I need to make a final decision. And so ask. Another verse in Proverbs says, fools think that their own way is right, but the wise listen to others. Just because it's real easy to act foolish doesn't mean it's very wise to do it. And so realize that it's worth listening to people. Do you know that you can have let me ask you this way. Has anybody ever gotten into a political discussion with anybody in the last year and a half? Even with sharply differing opinions, You can have a somewhat lengthy discussion with somebody, and all you're doing is asking them questions about their position. Well, why do you feel that way? Well, tell me more. Why is that important to you? And if at the end of that time, the person just turns around and walks off, they might think that you're in complete agreement with them because you haven't said anything contrary. But that if you will have a discussion along those lines, you're going to gain a lot more information than you would just by arguing your point. For example, do you know why they believe what they believe? Do you know what the underlying emotion is that's supporting that opinion? Those are good information pieces to have if you're going to have a relationship with this person. If you're going to try and navigate some of the differences in your relationship. Those of you that are parents, still have children at home, these tools are absolutely wonderful. I guarantee you, you don't have all the information you need to know at the beginning of your discussion with your child when you're getting ready to discipline them. And if you already have pronounced the judgment, you will never get that information. But you need to ask them questions. What were they thinking? Of course, if it was a boy, he probably wasn't thinking, and that's part of the issue. But you need to ask questions. You need to get more information. And what you can do is, and this is a very helpful tool when you're in the midst of intense fellowship, to slow the conversation down. And you can do it unilaterally. And now if you and whoever you're in relationship with both do this, you're going to be doing great. But it's just using reflective dialogue. And somebody will say something. And if you don't understand what they said, if you disagree with what they said, or with anywhere confusing, then simply repeat it back. What I heard you say was, is that what you meant? Remember our 3 rings? What you mean, what you say, and what you hear? So you're just taking what you hear, you're repeating that, and asking if that's what they meant. Now, how many of you have taken hours to figure out that what you heard was not what the person meant? And you don't have to. I taught a class, in fact, I've used these principles for a number of years, where I said, if you will come to this class and put these principles into practice, I can guarantee you that your time of intense fellowship will be cut by 75%. And I specifically use that terminology to motivate the men to show up. Because we're not interested in hours-long discussion about what we're doing wrong. But it doesn't need to be that way if we'll listen better. And so just use that one tool. What I heard you say was, is that what you meant? Because how many times is it simply a miscommunication that's the root cause of the argument? So if you can find that in the first 5 minutes, I mean, if you want to spend the intensity for another 2 hours, go for it. But usually people don't want to sign up for that. I really like the way that my wife argues. And she's done this almost all our married life. She'll get to the root of the matter, and we'll finish the discussion, and she'll say, let's just go ahead and get this fixed, and then we can do the makeup. Works for me. So ask questions. The R in here is ratify. Ratify the feelings. Validate the emotions. if that couple in the video had stopped to validate the emotions, that would have been what they needed to reach the heart. In fact, at the very end, when he simply said, "That must be hard," she softened, she melted. That was the first time that he reached her heart. Now, did he do it with a good thought? Was he doing it reluctantly? Grudgingly? Yeah, he didn't have a real good attitude about it. But even with not doing it well, with a good intention, he still reached her heart simply by validating the emotion. He hadn't heard what she was sharing, that this is hard. I'm discouraged. I'm frustrated. And he reached her heart. That's what you have to do. And the easiest way to reach somebody's heart is to understand the emotions, and you can agree with the emotion, you can validate the emotion even when you disagree with the opinion. He didn't have to agree with all of her opinions to reach her heart. She could have likewise have said, I understand that you're trying to help, and I appreciate that. Would have done wonders to have reached his heart. When you feel that you're understood, when you feel that your feelings are validated, it takes the anger out of the air. Takes the animosity out. It calms things down to where you can start to deal with the issues. See, just because you've got a solution, this is particularly us guys, we just come with a Mr. Fix-It hat. Anytime that we see something, and I don't know, but what that's hardwired into us. But just because we've got an idea doesn't mean that we need to share it immediately. In fact, if you try and fix the head before you reach the heart, it's not going to work out for you. And what he could have done was what he did, as far as he finally validated the emotions. That must be hard. And then, unfortunately, when he was giving her a hug, he hit the nail on the head. Literally. And instead of jumping right back to his fix-it mode, he could have shifted the position to where he could have held her without causing the pain. He would have reached the heart. And one thing that I've done with Peg, learned a long time ago is that there's a lot of time that she's sharing information with me because she just wants to process it out loud. And other times she's sharing information with me because she'd kind of like to hear my perspective on it. And guys, if you can figure out which one is which, things will go better for you. And the easiest way to figure out which one is which is the A in ear, ask. And so I'll either ask at the beginning or I'll ask at the end. Maybe she's sharing something with me. She's already involved in it, so I'll just listen. She gets through, and I said, wow. Try and find an emotion that I can validate. Then I'll ask, were you just processing out loud? Are you good? Or if I've thought of something that I feel could help, before I give that advice, I will ask. I've got a thought on that. Is that something you'd like to hear? That was one of the best decisions I've ever made. When I started answering it, you saw the example of what happens when you don't ask. when you just jump in with the answer. You got to reach the heart first, and you got to ask permission. Because if someone in your life is just processing, in fact, stereotypically, this is how it goes in the husband-wife relationship, that the wife is processing out loud and the husband's, And a number of years ago, and I can't even remember what the issue was, but I said something, and Peg instantly came up with a fix-it. And I burst out laughing because the next thought in my head was, I just wanted you to understand what I was going through. I didn't want you to fix it. So find out if your advice is welcome at the time. And if it's not, then it wasn't asked for. And it's not going to help you to give. So, some of you have seen me walking around with this bear. It's Harmony Bear. We have some out on the table. But how many of you noticed how the bear is spelled? It's kind of small print all the way up here, but it's B-E-A-R. And what this is not just a cute, cuddly little toy. This is a communication device. It's a communication tool. It's a marriage saver. It's a relationship saver. And these are available. In fact, I bought these, about February of last year. This is the first chance I've had to disperse any of them because of our lovely little COVID issues. But I'm selling that cost. It cost me $5 through Harmony in the Home where I bought them. And the way that it works is this. When you're in intense fellowship, you can say, excuse me just a minute, and go and pick up this bear. Or you can even start a conversation with the bear. But the rules of engagement are simply this. If you're holding on to the bear, you've got one job. Guess what it is? It's to listen. And if you say anything, it's to do the second part, and that is to ask questions. And before you give any advice, before you share your thoughts, before you share your opinion, you endeavor to reach the heart. And if you'll do that, then I guarantee you the other person will be willing to listen to you. So, does this sound like it would be helpful? Is there somebody that would love to have this right now? I can't come all the way up there, or I'll come out of the camera range. This is our gift to you at no charge.
I think that's a wonderful idea. I can see our children using these. Thank you.
You're welcome. Before I close, I'd like to invite the worship team to come back up and get ready for the rest of the service. As I understand it, shortly after I get done, the online audience will be leaving. And so I just wanted to let you know a way that you can connect with Harmony in the Home. Pastor Kevin is going to set up to where the number for the church here, the 586-200-1928, if you'll just simply text the word Harmony, that will connect you to our website, and you can access any of the services we have in there. And basically what I wanted to just encourage you is that we offer low-cost counseling. When I say low cost, it's supported by the donations that come into the ministry, but we offer it to people for just a small copay. And so, in fact, I'm working with a man right now that I met through a gentleman that I met at another church. And when he called me up, and I said, how did you hear about me? And he told me about the gentleman that had been at a church that I had spoken at a few times. And he was asking me, is there any hope for my marriage? And I said, well, the only hope right now, the direction you're going, no, there's no hope. But if you'll change your actions, then yes, there can be some hope. But I'm able to meet with him. I've been meeting with him on a weekly basis. I don't know if he could afford just a weekly counseling service, but he's able to take care of, to use the service simply because it's just the small copay per visit. And so I want to let people know that that's available. Just go to the website, email me, call me. Be glad to set that up. And I put it this way. If you don't need the service, that's great. Then I invite you to support the ministry so that I can provide the service to people that do need that. The Harmony Bears will be available out in the lobby. Thank you so much for being here, for being attentive. I trust, myself included, that we'll all do a better job of listening after today's message. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Larry. That was awesome. We so appreciate that. We want to thank our online audience for attending with us today. So we are going to be moving into the communion service. So we'll be dismissing our online audience. And thank you once again for joining us on